hitting my car with his headlamp. I don't know, he's probably driven by about 8 times now. See, there's some guy out there parked fucking crooked too. I don't know who it is. Might be another cop, who knows. On the bright side, been able to get my car warm finally. I'm down to the very end of my pellets though. I have to go pick some more of them up tomorrow. On the bright side, the Tillamook store is right across the street. The sporting goods place. Hopefully they get some more of them in. No fun whatsoever. Anyway, it would have been nice to get some dinner tonight at the Denny's. Those folks are pretty nice. That would have been able to get me a little bit of time on the computer and get some stuff sent to the people that need to see it. It's a little difficult for people to share something that they don't have access to. Now, for a couple of days there, couldn't send anything to Michelle. Obviously, that was not going to happen. Being as I was blocked, she unblocked me though, so that's good. That makes it easier to get in contact with her. And why the hell isn't my phone charging? Ugh. There it goes. Let's see if that guy's still parked out there. No. Maybe he turned off his lights. Maybe not. Who knows? I know with all the lights off in town, they got better things to do than fuck around down here. They ought to be doing something about emergency lighting. I mean, if they're not gonna have the power up in the next few hours, it's probably a good idea to have some of these officers out here in the major intersections to make sure that there are no traffic issues. Now, I was surprised by the fact that these folks in Oregon, being as most of them drive like fucking morons, actually observed right-of-way and treated these lights as if they are stop signs, as is the proper procedure nationwide if the situation happens that the lights go out. So I am pretty happy with the folks here for how well they've handled the situation of having no power. I know there's a few people in tents right now that I'm really worried about just because man, that wind was hard enough to rock my vehicle. I mean, straight up, it almost felt as if it had given me another 5 miles per hour, it could have taken my tires on my driver's side up off the ground. I mean, it was a pretty heavy gust. And we had some pretty heavy ones most of the day. With that cop keeping on driving by and fucking spotlighting my vehicle, like, that does really annoy the shit out of me. But it also, like, as afraid of the cops as I am, especially when I first moved to a new place. Let me explain it like this. When I first moved to a new place, I've got 2-3 days max before I'm on the radar of local police. That's because I have to pick small towns because I can't handle a major city. When I was in Tacoma, I got taken advantage of a lot. Now, I had two choices there. I could either go out and hurt those son of a bitches to get my things back, or I could try to do it the legal way. I tried to do it the legal way. You can't do the legal way when you're a homeless and disabled male who goes in alone. It just doesn't work. I did record the situation there, though, and that's a good thing. I probably won't be getting any sleep tonight. I mean, it's not even 11 o'clock. That guy has spotlighted me so many fucking times already. This is unfucking called for. There are people here who do a lot of really horrible things. And I want to tell you, a lot of y'all, you want to tell me about how I need to feel sorry for the junkies and I need to feel sorry for the schizophrenic folks. I already do. All right, most of what I do is to protect people who are the most victimized. Someone who's called schizophrenic, or someone who's called mentally ill for that matter. When somebody calls you mentally ill, they're trying to discredit you. Unless it's somebody who's trying to use it as an excuse for you, such as the case with Robert Farnsworth here in town. That lady wanted to tell me he's mentally ill. Well, shit. 80% of Americans are diagnosed with something in the DSM-5. That means 80% of the population can have their rights taken away exactly the way mine have. Out of that 80%, however, there is a percentage of those people who have a loved one, a good caseworker, or a roof over their head, or a combination of the three. And really, if you're doing well and you're called mentally ill, you do have a combination of the three. You have a fully functioning support network, being as you have the place to work on what you need to. You have the family support. Those people can look at the information and help you when you need to go in and turn in crimes against you. You've also, because you have family and or friends who are actually involved in your life, then these services actually listen and actually get on board. Now, the fact that I've gone through 6 years of this shows ongoing and habitual abuse by the United States government and, of course, its representatives in law enforcement. The fact that people that I tried to turn in have repeatedly gone to prison for exactly the things that I told you they were doing, it's just phenomenal that you still don't listen. The ones who do, I want to thank you. When I said I was willing to go to prison to keep people's children safe, I kept my word. And I'll keep it again if I have to. If going to prison is what keeps my sister safe, keeps my niece safe, if prison is what keeps Alicia Bollinger safe and Maddie Boas safe, if prison is what keeps my older brother Eric safe, well, fuck yes, I love them. They're worth it. If going back to prison is what keeps Jamie and her son safe, they're worth it. If going back to prison is what keeps Amy safe from Joshua Rayborn, or keeps her children safe from her and Josh, I'm willing to go back to prison. If it protects Natalie's ex-stepmothers, or her real mother, or her siblings, it's worth it to go back to prison. Leslie Snell was good to me back in high school. Well, she was nice to me anyway. She talked to me like I was a person. Her husband, Clint, he's a really nice guy, real humble, real down to earth. If me going back to prison is what keeps him safe, he's worth it. He is absolutely worth it. If going back to prison prevents his daughters and his son from being harmed, they're worth it too. They are all worth it. If going back to prison keeps Wendell McPhee safe, he's worth it. If going back to prison keeps Amy Witcher's children safe, they are worth it. But how can she keep them safe as long as Andrew Witcher is still in the household? Goddamn things I have to worry about. When you guys want to tell me I'm selfish and only thinking about me, no, I don't ever get the opportunity to just think about me. You guys want me. Caitlin Tatum won't let me. Teresa Orn wouldn't let me. Tara Hicks wouldn't let me. Riley Lawton wouldn't let me. There's all these people with all of these violent reminders. They just want to talk about hurting people all the goddamn time, and I can't handle that. That is not what I'm about. That is not what I'm trying to do. I asked all of these people not to break the law. I let them all know if someone had to break the law, it was going to be me. I already knew that you guys were cowards. But you know what? I love you, cowards. I love who you were to me in the time in our lives that we had together. Y'all remember who I was in person? You remember who I was before I hurt my back? Do any of you remember the things that I did for you? Those of you who can remember the things I did for you in real life, in person, right then and there, when it made a difference, when it mattered the most, immediately, right away. I want you to stop and consider how many times you've been too busy to help me. I want you to consider how many times you've used tragedy in your life as an excuse to do nothing. When I had tragedy in my life, it did not stop me from doing the right thing. After Natalie was killed, I didn't use her death as an excuse to stop trying to help find Mandy Singer's son. We eventually found him safe. Months and months and months later. But he was found and he was safe and he was alive. I was still trying to help find him 2 days after I found out Natalie disappeared. I didn't even know she was dead yet. I was still trying to help find her, and I was trying to help find him, and I was doing the footwork too. Had my boots on the ground in Boulder, Colorado, asking the people that needed to be asked. I tracked Christopher Weaver down. He was the last person to be seen with Ryan. Goddamn right, I looked him up, tracked him down, and spoke to him. I also found a letter underneath the bridge, the Broadway Bridge at the Boulder Public Library. I read it aloud on my Facebook. When I said I was willing to go to prison to protect your children, I fucking meant it. I had to do some desperate things to try to get Amy Witcher's children safe. I failed. I had to do some desperate things to try to get Amy Spencer's children safely away from Randy Ingersoll. I succeeded. Sure, I was assaulted and locked up, but on the bright side, I succeeded. Josh's words are on my YouTube channel. Him explaining that those girls were put in a foster home, and that was a tough decision after growing up in the places that I did. You don't always get a good foster home. But also, I had to look at the safety for those girls. I had to look at that first and foremost. How safe were they with Rihanna being drunk and temperamental all the time? Having her nose stuck in that Bates Motel show. Just completely infatuated with it. Then something would remind her of her sons, and it would trigger her, and she'd start smacking those girls. We were at an RV park. I mean, there's people in and out of there all the time. We're only a couple of miles from a prison. Same prison my dad was in, by the way. For 38 counts of cocaine possession with intent to sell. I was forced to make an illegal firearm. And as far as I know, that illegal firearm is still possibly at large. The person it was being made for does not have access to it, but there is somebody who's, well, he's more likely to shoot up a church than a school, I'll tell you that. But still, I mean, this is a man who is a prime candidate for school shootings. Luckily, he doesn't know it's there. His brother knows it's somewhere there, and his sister, she's been informed so that she can try to turn it in. I don't know if she's had any success. With me getting spotlighted by that cop as often as he has tonight, I expect him to come back through within the next 5 to 10 minutes, I suppose. We'll see him again. I got all the emergency stuff I need in here. I even got a flare pistol for just in case I get washed out to sea. Of course, that's not a very likely thing to happen. I went to jail to try to force the cops to do their fucking jobs in Rawlins, Wyoming and get those girls safe. And after those girls were safe, they liked the foster home that they went to so much, they wrote a letter to the judge saying they didn't want to go back home to their mom. Understandably so. That was the third time that she'd sold out her own kids for methamphetamines. Goddamn right, it's a lot safer than being stuck in an RV park that close to a prison with people going in and out all the time and those girls being unsupervised. Rihanna wasn't supervising them. I couldn't go to the girls' restroom, which is where, of course, they wanted to congregate. That's such a scary place, too. All right, let's start up some more of these little fire pellets. We're running low, ain't we? On the bright side, we're actually better off than a lot of those folks in the houses. They got to bundle up with blankets. Most people don't have a generator, and if they do, what are the likelihood that people in cheap apartment complexes are even going to be allowed to use it? Proper ventilation for those things is pretty important. Two boxes of these fuel pellets on a cold night. 2 boxes of them at $6. It'd keep me warm. I mean, that's my fire. Now, in order to get the heat to disperse evenly and also keep the flame from doing anything to this up here, because it will get hot, we're going to put this piece over there so that it's at an angle. And then I got this dog dish here, and we'll set it in there like that. Now that'll bring the heat up, and it brings it out the little flue here. And I can actually point it this direction, and it'll push the heat down across here to my feet. I know there's a container of tea in here somewhere. There's got to be. So I'm going to see if I can find it. Oh, nice. Alright, maybe now I can show you my shirt. It's pretty cool. Not bad for only $10 too. I also have a tower of coffee cups. You'll see it in a moment because I just had to move it so I could try to gain access and see if I could find me the tea. There's even more cups in here. It's only $1 a piece, and I can quasi use their internet. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. I'm not sure why their internet is so splotchy, but it also, I guess, probably depends on the device I'm using. There's a lot of the evidence that I have. I got to be able to figure out my old passcode to get in, or I have to invent a new one. That's one of the biggest issues with having to remember all this stuff and also having to continually change it. Like, I've had a lot of issues with hackers trying to get into my stuff. And there's a few people that I trusted that ended up showing themselves to be untrustworthy, so I had to make sure they didn't have access. There's a lot of people who had, good ideas, but just their follow through is shitty. I did finally figure out how to get myself disconnected from just continually playing that lady's channel. I didn't subscribe to it, so, it didn't do any of that extra crap or anything, but I had to exit out of Facebook, or no, not exit out of Facebook, exit out of YouTube and do the close all thing, and then try opening it again. Luckily, it's saved to the device, so it automatically logs it in, but If I log out, then it'll be a pain in the ass. So I got to make sure that I don't do that. I guess I better get back to digging for the tea. Oh, another dead lighter. Oh, do not light my car on fire. Alright, I am holding a fire on my lap. It is not the scariest thing that I've done this week. Matter of fact, it's not even the scariest thing I've done today. Is that my tea? No. If I get any closer, I'm gonna light my beard on fire. Alright, I can't do that. That's unsafe. Alright. We'll find a way to get it done. It would be horrible to end up dehydrated in this weather, wouldn't it? Surrounded by rain, getting dehydrated. Alright, I just found another half a box of those fuel cells or fuel tablets. Oh shit, yes. Alright, I guess the tea is not as important. I found oranges, and oranges actually work pretty good for subsiding thirst. Oh yes, and I got this Gatorade Zero thing that's nasty. It's got 0 sugar in it. Oh my god. Oh. Alright, yes. Woohoo! We're playing Tetris with trash. On the bright side, I'm one of the people I know who can build some glorious stuff out of garbage. God, every one of these is ruined. I got 3 of these air blower things. They're battery operated. But, of course, due to the weather and the condensation, the electric motors are likely froze up with a layer of surface rust. Alright, I'm not sure what the chemicals are that burn in that thing, but sometimes I have to open the window because it starts burning my fucking eyeballs. Right now, it is burning my eyeballs. Usually only takes a second or two opening it up. There it goes. And I haven't let too much of the heat out because it's just the air heat that's being let out. For the most part, everything in my vehicle, after about the 4th or 5th tablet, the stuff that's in my vehicle is warmed up. And as long as it stays warmed up, it takes less of the fuel cells to maintain the warmth. Oh, good. Is it? No, that's an empty bag. Damn. I was hoping I found a pouch of tobacco. Alright. Anyway, I'm using this basically so I can pretend I got a friend to talk to. I do that often with my YouTube channel. It's not just venting. There's a reason I speak up. I don't speak for no reason. There's no purpose to it. That's the difference between small talk and actual help. A lot of people thought that their words were more important than the victims in this case. I am the victim. Natalie Bollinger is a victim as well. But the thing is, people just want to focus on the Natalie situation. Like there was no story before and no story after, and that I don't matter and never did. Natalie thought that I mattered at one point in time. It was making her family happy, the very people who had been predatory towards her entire life. But she wanted them to love her. And look what they did to her for it. Look what they did to me for it. And people want me to shut up. That's their advice. Sean, you just need to shut up. No. Shutting up changes nothing. Lynn Whalen showed that tonight. When Lynn Whalen rescued a woman who needed rescued, needed help fleeing abuse, long-term abuse. Now the Slabs, you guys know the reputation there. They kill people like that. Instead, the sheriff came and got him. Guy's going to prison. He's setting an example instead of becoming a martyr. The last 2 sex offenders they killed there became martyrs. I know at least 6 people who go to the Slabs seasonally. Depending. When I say depending, it means maybe they'll show up, maybe they won't. Lynn Whalen is the only permanent resident I know, and I've never met her. About time for that officer to show back up. No. There's a lot of times where a situation happened that was fucked up. Wasn't my fault the situation happened. Wasn't their fault the situation happened. And they want to type stuff at me like, stop blaming me. But all I'm asking them is to admit the situation happened. Now I've got plenty of evidence from all these people that these situations did, in fact, actually happen. Why didn't they come forward? Why did they only come forward to me? Some of them claim to have come forward to the police, but the police wouldn't listen. But they didn't save any evidence, and they didn't make the calls with me. They didn't save the name of the officer. Brandon Ratner claimed to have done so. Aaron Cockerham claimed to have done so. Carl Rogers claimed to have done so. There are people who have claimed that they did so, but they never tried doing it with me. Therefore, there's no evidence. It's just their word. Just their word versus the police. But since they don't come forward about it, I get treated like I'm a nut job. And so I speak up. And then they say, oh, well, I did this, 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 and this for you. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the cops said you didn't. So who lied? You or the cops? Mm. The point is, what my predators had to say was in court, and it was taken as if it was written and ordained by the Almighty Himself in stone. And while the evidence between myself and Natalie, myself and Maddie, myself and Alicia, myself and many other people shows that with those officers and the Bollingers said in court, typed in court dates I was never even allowed to go to, were all lies. That they were able to deprive me of my resources, disability money, by lying repeatedly. Mm. These little cuties oranges are a little bit all right. Mm. Well, I would complain that this officer is making a liar out of me. I'm actually glad he stopped coming around and fucking with me with that goddamn spotlight, though. And although he's heightened my paranoia, he hasn't fucked with me other than that. Obviously, if he's going to keep doing that all night, I'm not going to be able to get any sleep, but hopefully at some point here in the next day or two, they'll get the power back up and running. And even if they don't, well, fuck it. We got plenty enough wind, and we've got it down low enough that we can use some very special turbines. If it becomes a long-term issue, we can definitely come up with the materials from what's already in this town to make sure it's still got power. As far as the ocean goes, some of the ideas that I've had that would be really great for boats, it won't work here. It's this time of the year, it's too tempestuous. It'd tear something like that apart. But the idea that I had for making the boat that way kind of relies on your ability to actually pull the outriggers inwards and push them against the hull of your boat, suck them in real close, and winch them down. That way you can actually weather it out. There's also the fact that a lot of the ideas that I had, I took from some modern stuff that were just ideas when I was growing up. Like the idea of the buoyancy effect being used to actually power the thing. That's a great idea. And some of the ideas that I've seen for it, they make them wrong. They make them all electronic fucking voodoo bullshit. Now, I figure it's alright to have a electronic voodoo bullshit backup, but anything battery powered is liable to go fucked up on you at the wrong time. So, of course, when I look at that idea, I look at probably 200 to 300 different ways of doing it. And that's just because I like the way things work. and I try to figure out how to do stuff mechanically. I think that's a better way of doing it. It's more sound. You're not going to take out an electronic machine with an EMP, are you? Well, you absolutely are. Good luck taking out a wrench with an EMP. Good luck taking out a lever and a fulcrum. Good luck using an EMP to make rocks and fucking sticks stop working. It just ain't gonna work. We've also got the physics of fire. We've got a lot of trash around. Lots and lots of plastics that can be melted down. As long as you have a mold, you can make hundreds of them. And as long as you set it up right, you can actually make hundreds of molds, or you can make just a couple of molds and make hundreds, if not thousands, of different variants of different, all sorts of things. Now that sounds very generalized, and I do get that. I designed a Lego set for adults. I don't mean as in like triple X adult. What I mean is like, when you're a little kid and you're playing with Legos, you're just making little dinky houses the little dinky Lego men play in. But as an adult, wouldn't it be easier to invest in something like that if you're able to make something you can keep, something you can use? Instead of having something for a little Lego man, you've got something that you can use, your family can use. That guy that Brandon Ratner is pissed off at for not doing anything at that party, Christopher Hippie. Or Hippie Chris is what he goes by. He actually made a little CGI prototype kind of thing for me so that I could kind of show the concept. But if you can make things stackable, that's kind of the idea behind it. If you can make things that are stackable, like let's say, all right, for example, I designed a boat made out of this that's pretty well flat. You can squish it flat and strap it up. You can stack up 10 or 15 of them easily and still have plenty of clearance for the skids on an AH-1G Cobra. So as far as going out in some of that inclement weather, they've got a version called the AH-1J, and it's the Sea Cobra, or it's one of its variants is the Sea Cobra, and it's actually specially modified so it can fly through some very bad weather. Now, if you could make some life rafts that are stackable, but then of course they're molded in a way that plastic is going to have tension on it. As soon as you let go of the strap, you can drop 10 or 15 of those easily into an area, and people will be able to actually pull themselves in. Now that just comes to paying attention to how people are going to be able to get into it, how they're going to need to be able to get into it, and also the contaminants that are going to be in the area. The idea of keeping them warm and dry may not be the best way to do it because you just simply can't afford that at that point in time. What you need to do is get them out of the water and get them out of circulating air. Circulating air will pull the heat out of their body if they're wet. But if you're able to get yourself into a little bit of a bubble and you're able to slide into it, and even if it's got some water in it, you're able to get yourself up above it a little bit, then you've got far less chance of dying of hypothermia. Plus, if you make them big enough, which on an AH-1G, you're talking about like 51 feet worth of length, and you're only putting that under the main fuselage area, so you're talking about a 20 to 25 foot long, basically emergency plastic raft. Now when you stack them up, they're all flat, but when you let them go, the tension releases and they'll basically, I can't really say inflate themselves. They basically just try to go back to their original form. It's called memory, and I don't mean the memory like your brain has, I mean material memory. Um, when you start getting into elasticity and like with plastics, you're talking about elastomers and polymers. But when you're talking about metals and metal alloys, it's also the same exact thing. And you also get different types and varying degrees of metal stresses. Um, when you're working with a material like steel, depending on the carbon content and how it's manufactured, you may get a lot of bend out of it. But if you're talking about something like cast iron, that's real hard, but it's brittle. It'll break real easily. It's not going to have any give to it whatsoever. If you try to bend it, it won't bend. It'll just break. With spring steel, it won't want to break, and if it does break, it'll end up shooting off into something else around it and breaking other things. So it's probably not a good idea to try to break stainless steel. Now then we start working with superconductors and superconducting alloys, but also when it comes to metallurgy, we've got a power material known as nickel. Now this stuff is some really good stuff. If you make something out of steel, steel has kind of okay memory as far as when you try to, well, let's use spring steel for example. You wind up the spring and you wind up the spring and you let it go and you wind it up and you let it go and you wind it up and you let it go. And even though you keep on winding it up, it still wants to go back to its original position, doesn't it? It's got good memory. When you talk about something like aluminum, it has shit for memory. As soon as you move it, it's basically adjusted itself to its new position quite well and has very, very little memory left to it. When you're talking about nickel, though, you're talking about a material that not only gets harder and stronger the hotter that it gets, but it also has the best memory of any of the metals. If you cast something properly out of nickel, like you guys have seen those the glasses that have the unbreakable earpieces. You know, you can bend them and you can twist them and you can do all sorts of really cool stuff with them and they always go back into shape, right? That's a nickel alloy, primarily nickel. Now, nickel up, it'll want to go back to its position as well if it's a very specific type of alloy. If you've got alloys that'll hold themselves in a particular shape and you can bend them and move them like you would be able to with aluminum. But then when you heat it up, because it has enough of the nickel content in it, the nickel will want to, of course, pull itself back to its memory. And all you're doing is basically the stuff that doesn't have memory to it that's within the compound. You're heating it up so that you're allowing the nickel to do its job. Without solids in the way, with those metals basically being slightly unbonded, it allows the nickel to go back to its original memory position. When they make jet engines, they use a lot of nickel in it, and nickel is one of the most important components to stainless steel. So is chromium. Without chromium, you wouldn't have stainless steel. Without nickel, you wouldn't have stainless steel. Now we've got stainless steel in such abundance that we can actually, if you wanted to harvest just the silverware that people threw out in a junk lot and the pots and pans, you could probably make yourself a pretty decent steamship in just a year or two of smelting that shit down. And of course, if you're doing it on a junk heap, there'll be plenty of fuel there, plenty of old beds, old mattresses, dirty diapers, lots of stuff that'll burn. Me, I learned how to do a little bit of everything, and I learned how to do it the old fashioned way. I learned how the Greeks did it, the Japanese did it, and I did enough practicing by hand and on small modeling levels on a lot of these things to be able to say I can sufficiently utilize those materials if that's all I had to hand. If I was in Japan and the only thing that I had nearby was a red pine forest, then yes, I could absolutely build a Japanese style house out of what's in that pine forest well enough for it to hold up. I probably wouldn't be able to make a pagoda that well, but I'd be able to make a Japanese house. If all I had access to was dirt and very little moisture, well, I could harvest some of that moisture. I know some techniques. And of course, as long as I didn't mix the dirt with the water until nighttime, I could actually make my own mud bricks. Where there's a will, there's a way. But also, there's got to be the education. If you don't know what the you're doing and you haven't paid any goddamn attention, you're gonna fucking starve to death if you end up in a Mad Max type scenario, which let's hope it doesn't happen. We all know people who are preparing for a zombie flu or zombie plague or human beings getting a special kind of rabies that's airborne and like what's that movie? DayZ or whatever it's called, the one with Brad Pitt. Like that one is basically a mutated type of rabies. Works real fucking quick though. You'd think that it would take a few days for it to really set in. In the movie though, it's a 30-second thing or whatever. It's just a few seconds before the change hits you. I guess a certain concoction of chemical compounds could probably do that to you. I mean, we've all seen people who change from night to day as soon as they snort a line. Alright, time to light a couple more of them. What I wanted to do was to make the world a better place. What ended up happening is that I rescued the wrong people. Is that? No, it's not. Natalie was worth it. Alicia Bollinger is still worth it. Maddie Boa is still worth it. My older brother is still worth it. My little sister is still worth it. When I love you, even when you do fucked up shit to me. But when I ask you to go away, ask you to leave me alone, or ask you to call off the dogs, you probably should listen to me. When I tell you something's important, there's probably a reason I'm telling you it's important. It's probably because it's fucking important. I had to learn a whole bunch of real quick crash course crap when it comes to web sleuths and all of these infatuated with death sites and a lot of the terminology used. I also was used to the web sleuths after just a couple of months. I was also used to my friends being cowards and useless pieces of shit. By the time I even left for Virginia to go see Natalie at her request. Oh. My back is fucking killing me. On the bright side, I got a fire started. I'm gonna start up my car for a couple of minutes because it's got the dome light on. To make sure that I don't wear my battery down. Of course, with me not able to... fuck, that hurts. With me not able to get my heater up and running, there's... shit, I don't fucking know. I noticed I got 2 viewers. Y'all want to pretend to be interactive? I could really use some company and somebody to talk to, but that's not what I got. People telling me to call suicide hotline. You know, that's dismissive as fuck, and those places are dismissive as fuck. So please don't. It's a mean thing to do. You guys have been paying attention, which most of you haven't. Those of you who have gotten to see a lot of hell that I and many others have gone through out here. And the fact that there are certain people that aren't allowed to come forward. A woman is allowed to come forward, a man is not. If a man does it, he's a rat. But it also depends on which circle you're in. When you're a female who's not one of the pretty ones, they'll treat you like a man. There's also the mentally ill tactics used to hurt so many of us out here. It's okay for you guys to beat us up, apparently, because you're overwhelmed. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think that's okay. But so many of you do. Anyway, it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to find my tea without lighting my fucking car on fire, so the tea is not as important. Like I said, I do have this sugar-free Gatorade. I'll drink it as a last resort. I don't think we're headed toward a Mad Max thing, like, immediately. There's a possibility that something like that could happen. As a scientist, I don't want to rule out the possibility, but, you know, I work mostly with probability. Likely is a situation to come to fruition. How much risk does a particular individual at of abuse or harm? What are the factors and why? All it comes down to being educated. And it comes down to whether or not you want to be educated. I deal with a lot of people who want to judge me based on not looking at any fucking evidence. On the bright side, I'm honest enough to tell people I'm an asshole from the start. I used to be a lot nicer person, but you don't fuck with kids, assholes. You don't get to fuck with my friends and fuck with my family and pretend that I'm the bad guy. Even if my friends, my family are cowards, that doesn't mean I don't love them. And it doesn't mean that you guys get to do fucked up shit to them. It wasn't okay what you fucking people did to Natalie Bollinger. It wasn't okay what you fucking people did to me. bright side, I'm still fighting. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still speaking out. I'm still fighting for the rights of your kids. I'm still fighting for your rights. What the hell are you doing? Sitting on your ass? Anyway, I probably said it already, but good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper, and no victim left behind. Also, if you get a chance, look up Lynn Whalen. Look up Slab City. Try to get educated, please. And try understanding that not every homeless person is that homeless person that you judge us all based on. That one asshole that ripped off your tip jar once, so you hate all homeless people. Or that woman that you invited to your house and she ended up overdosing in your bathroom. Or stealing all your shit and going to Wyoming with it. Not all homeless people are those people. Not all homeless people are responsible for what those people did. If your predator's name is Tim, you go after Tim. If your predator's name is Ted, you go after Ted. You get me? If your predator's name is Nicole Gerald, you go after Nicole Gerald. I am absolutely after all these people. In specific, it is their words that I'm after. And I aim to take those words to court. I am to show the rest of the world why it is that they need to stop listening to the United States. Stop believing this perfect utopia America bullshit. Well, it's been over an hour and that cop has not come back by to fuck with me. I might try to get some sleep. If I hear a knock on my window, because I do lock my door. If I get a knock on my window, I let them know I'm not going to talk to them until I have my recording device started. And then I usually pull out my recording device to get started and record it. It's in between when I tell them that and when I'm actually able to get it started that I have to be afraid of them doing something the most, because, well, it's just me versus them at that point, and it doesn't need to be a versus thing. If these guys had half a fucking brain, they'd be working with me instead of against me. JB 1987 Osorio type, stay safe, Sean. I'm doing my best, but I'm never safe. You know that. It ain't safe out here on the streets. The cops just as likely to steal from you as anybody else. Cops just as likely to kill you as anybody else. Slab City ain't no joke, but it's quite representative of what we get stuck in. Most of the time, you can't get the cops to do shit. And unfortunately, we ain't even allowed to bury our own out here. JB 1983 typed, yep. There's a lot of people who offered to help me that are out on the streets themselves, and many of them I ran off. I'm fine with that. They shouldn't have been there to begin with. If they're not going to speak up, they're doing me no good. JB Osorio, there's a couple of people now. One of them named Michelle Stewart. She made a video about me. I hope you watch it. There's also a lady who goes by Girl Interrupted. If you go through the comments on the videos in the last few weeks, you can see comments by them. You can also hear how me being in a state of crisis and trying to communicate results in horrible communication. How can you see it? That's right, she was typing to me in public. Well, type Michelle Stewart, MICHELLESTUART, and Sean David, and you might be able to find it that way. The other one, Girl Interrupted. If you go... Alright, in the last couple of days, there's been a few of my videos that she's commented in. So if you look at the ones that have comments in them, if you look at the comments, you'll be able to see hers. She's another person who's fighting hard for rights she ain't getting. She's also one of the people who watches my channel. She doesn't really speak up, but she does get on here and try to be friendly with me, which is cool. And the Miss Stewart lady, there's a lot of stuff on my channel that I wish you guys would share. And Mr. JB Osorio, if you would share the information and speak out, and you know, I know a lot of the stuff that's been said about me and the stuff that in courts was allowed to happen. There's also the reality of the situation that should be heard and should be shown. And it wasn't, because I was alone. JB Osorio typed, "Oh, look for those. I'm trying to learn more. I only found you because I was looking for a singer friend whose name is Sean David." I might have shared a couple of his videos because I run into him and his music. Some of it doesn't sound right, but it's not my style of music, but it's something that I'd listen to, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm glad you found me the way that you did. A lot of people, they watch those Natalie Bollinger sites on here with a lot of false notions because they were lied to, and nobody bothered to fact check any of it. JB Osorio type, yep, that's him. He's got a lot of videos on there. I've actually had people ask me, hey, I don't make music, or tell me that I have a beautiful voice. I'm like, it's not me. The best thing that I do is imitations of Jethro Tull or Dr. Hook. Black ones, white ones, yellow ones, red ones, and necrophiliacs looking for dead ones. The greatest of the sadist and the masochist too, screaming, "You hit me, and I'll hit you. We're going to the Freakers Ball, y'all. We're going to the Freakers Ball." Some of that song is not appropriate for modern days. It's not PC, as they say. But it's a good song. It's one of my favorites. That one in Oh, don't you know that's the sound of the men working on a chain? Gang, kick back. Or, let's see, what's another one I know? I know mostly just little bits and pieces of songs. Once there was this girl who didn't want to change with all the girls in the change room, but when they finally made her, you see, nobody's gonna pay to listen to me in concert. I'm not too terrible, but I can't hold a tune worth a shit anymore. I'm actually kind of glad that they run into that instead of my stuff sometimes, because it also does occur to me that that guy might even get some flack because I exist, so I hope not. JB Osorio typed, not a bad voice. Very cool. make sure I screenshot as people are typing, because a lot of times it doesn't actually save it. So when I play it later, I'm like, there's these people that are typing with me in my videos. And then I go back and I look at it and I'm like, fuck, I keep forgetting that on the phone it doesn't save it. So if I don't take a screenshot, I got my phone plugged in so it'll charge, but that makes it difficult to set it somewhere because the phone manufacturers wanted to put it on the bottom. So you can't set it up like this because it's got a charger sticking out of the bottom and it won't hold on a flat surface. So I had to turn the phone sideways when I started recording, and I just am in a habit of holding it the wrong way to do that. Anyway, let's start ourselves a fire here. Make sure we stay warm. We only need one right now. Since I got a little bit of a charge on my phone now, I can turn off the car. I want to keep my dome light on, so I'll have to turn my car on in about, I don't know, another 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes. Just make sure my light stays on. Make sure my car will still stay on tomorrow. Also, I noticed that the problem that I have with the ignition getting condensation in it, that ends up with the carbonization and the pockmarking of the contacts. If I keep starting my car up and keep the ignition hot, then it actually burns any of the condensation out before it gets to the point where I have to take the assembly apart and take a file down to the contacts again and then reassemble it. It would have cost me about 34 bucks. I was going to buy a whole new assembly, but it was anywhere from 120 bucks to 240 bucks for the whole assembly. And then, of course, you don't get matching keys. I mean, you get the keys for your ignition, but you don't get the matching keys for your doors, which sucks, because long story short, I started this video because that cop kept spotlighting me, and I figured I'd just kind of run with it and try to talk about the situation. The lady, Mary Stewart, she's the first person to actually speak up that I'm aware of. There is a lady who tried to make an appeal to people to listen a while ago. Sorry about all that. And I did post hers up. She got so much stuff wrong, but she was legit trying to pass the word out and get it in the right place. And I did try to pass it among my friends so they would see it, but they didn't bother. They didn't care. And I can't remember that lady's name either. But she's not somebody that I know in person. She's somebody who watched one of these Natalie Bollinger shows and realized, yeah, this is really a situation where, he could end up dead, or they might actually harm his family. So, yeah, people do need to pay attention. And the thing with Mary Stewart is that she's the first person to make an actual serious attempt at this. Actually speaking out publicly, even about, the little piddly stuff he knows. It's not piddly. The measly 50 bucks that she sent me, it's not a measly 50 bucks. And that's a lesson that's in the Bible too. Who gave more? The rich man who paid his taxes, or the poor woman who paid hers? The poor woman, because she paid everything that she had. There are a lot of really good lessons in the Bible, but you got to pay attention to the story instead of picking out little bits and pieces and twisting them the wrong way to mean something they don't. Let's see. JB 1987-030 typo. I'm off to bed, but I'll check in on you in the morning. Very cool. Thank you, JB. We'll see if I'm on in the morning. If I get arrested tonight or shot, I'm not going to apologize. I won't try to get arrested or shot, though. Good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind. Not even if you have a Hispanic sounding last name like Osorio. Not even if you have a German sounding last name like Schwartz. Not even if you have a generic last name like Smith.